Greetings, fellow investigators, and welcome back to our video podcast, Into the Darkness, where my friends and I play the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I'm your host, Tom Rayleigh. Our campaign is The Curse of Nineveh. It was written by Mike Mason, Mark Latham, Scott Dorward, and Paul Fricker, and it's available from the Chaosium website. I'm your game master, and this is episode 16. We're not going to do a recap tonight. We're just going to go right back into it. So, without any further delay, let's continue our journey into the darkness. All right. You had translated part of the hieroglyphics, or cuneiform, and they had given you a warning that getting the ritual wrong is not good. What do you guys want to do next? You guys have been waiting for your photographs to come back.
I've been studying that fragment.
The fragmenta.
Oh, yeah. How's the Latin coming?
Pretty good, I guess.
As I recall, so far what you've gleaned from it was a ward spell.
Right.
Placed on rocks. But nothing more.
And what time of day is it? Are we at the club, I assume?
We'll see you've arrived at the club, and we'll see you've picked up the photographs on the way. So you're there. Let's say 10 o'clock. That's a good time to start.
The morning after our second visit to Bedlam. So, given that poor Mr. Punchin has paid a dire price for having incorrectly used the Scrolls of Endless Shadow, whether he should have been using them at all being open question. We know at the very least that now that we have a more complete version of the text in these photographs, if we want to do anything with it, which is something for debate, we certainly want to find the Horn of Alu beforehand, if not also the Eye of Lamatsu. But I don't know where we go fire nearby.
I wonder where we would look for either of them, the horn or the eye. What did we have any leads from the museum?
I think so.
There are objects that disappeared en route to the museum
from overseas.
From the Near East and the museum, they went missing. As far as we know, they never arrived. Which might mean that Thompson has them. And I don't know where else we look for them.
Do we know of anyone who was on the transportation group that was bringing them from the original place to the museum?
So far as I know, everyone involved in either of the expeditions is mad or dead or Thompson.
That narrows the list quickly.
Well, actually, in this case, they probably would have just packed them up and had them shipped. So it could have been anybody along the way who just... It could have been some dock worker who broke open a box and thought, "Ooh, this looks pretty," and just walked off with it.
Then again, our friends with the Children of Tranquility might have some of these items already.
Ford, do an idea roll.
Made it.
It occurs to you that based on the evidence of what you've seen, the Children of Tranquility didn't know that all of these objects were taken until they were already taken. Otherwise, they would have recovered them probably on the way here instead of having to come to London and hunt them all down.
Maybe that other group, that Guido or whatever, has intercepted them.
It's quite possible on that. That would be my second thought. Which would mean that it would be imperative to try and thwart their plans and get as many of these artifacts that may still be out there as possible. That might be our best goal right now, rather than trying to play around with dangerous things.
Now, I'm wondering if we should contact the Children of Tranquility to see if they have a lead. I don't even know if we should involve them again or not.
Well,
Not quite yet. Not quite yet, because I got to thinking after thinking that they might have this, that they may not. They seem pretty surprised we have that golden statue. They may not entirely be keen on, how do you say, having those other items with them.
Well, we've generally been encouraged to keep our noses out of the matter, except when they found it expedient. But it's true that Guido and company, if we understand Punchin's journal correctly, right, the two Frenchmen approached him outside the museum, and we assume that that foreign element with a powerful master is the same powerful master that Guido once answered to. That fellow was very well informed about what Punchin was doing. And, generally speaking, we seem to be the least informed party. The Children of Tranquility know what we're doing. Guido and company know what we're doing and what Punchin's doing. I'm not entirely against leaving a advertisement for the Children of Tranquility to at least see if they have, as you say, a lead, or, given that the museum also seems to have bottomed out as a source of information for these missing objects.
I got a very bad feeling that our Guido Warlock guy is connected with this whole funding of the expedition, which would mean he's high up in various circles, and that could be quite the trouble, if you know what I mean.
Well, he certainly seems to be rich and powerful, and those people are always trouble. Speaking as somebody moderately rich and moderately powerful myself.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since that first day at the wake, we've had nothing but trouble. I mean,
we could pay a visit to our old friend Schweinsauger and see if he's gotten any new opal eyes in. I might phone him first to spare him the start. I think,
and I wonder,
alarm him.
And I wonder if we do show up there, if those Guido guys were still staking him out. That might bring us back into the picture.
I was thinking the same thing, Cyrus.
If we did go, we might, I don't want to say in costume, but maybe disguise ourselves a bit. But you had it right. Maybe you should give him a jingle first.
Yes, we could also have Felix send some of his men over. They blend in with various crowds.
We are a diverse group. So you just tell me the environment that we're going into, and I'll see if I'll make sure we have somebody that can be in there without being too noticeable.
There's no harm in it. I shouldn't think. Shall I phone him first, or should we not put him on guard and just send one of Felix's gents over?
I'd say send someone over. Don't want to give him a heads up.
I mean, we have no reason to think that he's involved in anything untoward, but or to think that the eye of Lamatsu is sitting on a dusty shelf next to a plaster replica of some Madonna, but it's not impossible.
On second thought, if we actually do go there and get on this Guido's radar, maybe that's actually a good thing, because we could use that to backtrack and find him. Maybe we should just go ourselves.
Well, whenever we try to backtrack along his chain of command, they just explode.
Yeah.
It's really quite unsettling.
At that moment, Sykes steps into the room, and he has a tray with an old-fashioned telephone and a long cord. And he says, Mr. Harcourt, there's a telephone call for you.
Thank you very much, Sykes. Hello.
Mr. Harcourt, this is Dr. Lawrence at Bellevue.
Yes, Dr. Lawrence.
There's been an incident.
I'm very sorry to hear that. Is it Mr. Punchin?
There was an attempt last night on his life.
Great Scott. From within inside the institution?
Well, it's difficult to explain. Would you mind coming down to the asylum?
No, not at all. If we could be of any help, we'd be more than happy to.
Somebody pissed off the children of tranquility.
Hmm.
Unless it's the Guidos.
Well, whoever it is got inside a secure facility. Let's hop over there.
That sounds to me like the children of tranquility.
I'm going to say if it was the Children of Tranquility, he'd be dead.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. My feeling is that they probably want his skin. That's,
Yes.
after all, what he was reading the scrolls of endless shadow off of, some ancient skin.
Either that or it's a backlash from the spell that he did.
Well, we'll find out.
Now, here goes another idea that's going to make me sound like the bad guy, but some of that writing on his body should be cut off or burned away so it's incomplete if he is killed and it's taken.
Well, certainly if he should succumb to whatever attack he was under, I think a cremation would be the proper treatment.
Correct, but right as it sits, he's a walking scroll. Some of that needs to be changed so if he is killed and the body's taken, they don't have it.
Here's an interesting question. Why did they call us?
Because we are the ones that put.
We're his friends, granted, but there's no reason to actually call us and have us show up.
Well, we've been down there twice in the last couple of days, and then we got pretty friendly with the doctor, and he realizes we actually care about the guy. So
Yeah, and Lawrence is interested in what's going on as well in a larger sense. So he might be looking for explanation from some. I mean, there aren't that many people around who read cuneiform.
But I do think Fuller does have a point in a way that there are other people that could have been contacted, like even Campbell Thompson. There, he could have been contacted in regards to this.
Right, Lawrence doesn't have a direct connection to Campbell Thompson.
Okay.
We'll find out what he has to say.
Yes.
We should be there any minute, since we've been in the car having this conversation. As you can see by this gentle bouncing.
What was that, Felix?
I'll drive. Let's go.
I guess you've been driving.
Oh,
I'm kind of scared if that's the way he's driving.
well, don't worry. You're in the back.
It took you the space between two sentences to get to the asylum. All right, you go in, and Dr. Lawrence, you finally come to Dr. Lawrence, and he says, yes, gentlemen. He says, apparently someone snuck into the facility last night dressed as an orderly and played havoc with our electrical system. They managed to turn out half the lights in the asylum on that side. And if it wasn't for the intervention of Mr. Wayne in Mr. Punchin's room, apparently he attacked the assailant, whoever it was, and startled him enough. It would seem that the assailant had no idea of what was about to happen, and the assailant went out the window.
How was the assailant dressed?
As an orderly.
what ethnicity was the orderly?
We don't know. It was very nearly pitch dark inside
Okay.
the building.
And did Mr. Punchin receive actual injury?
None whatsoever.
And Mr. Wayne as well?
But some minor bruises.
How was he emotionally?
Oddly enough, he seems just as calm as he was before.
It's the cats. Do you think you've gotten all the information from him that he has, or should we speak to him directly?
I don't know. You seem to have some insight into some of these strange things. Maybe you could ask questions that we would have otherwise missed.
And their suite, the windows are not barred.
Correct. It's not the
It's not the security. It's
right.
not the secure wing.
He-
Do you think it would be, well, we'll speak to them first. It might be advisable to move Mr. Punch into the more secure wing to prevent.
Yes, we've actually put some security, though we can't fathom why somebody would want to kill him.
Is it on the first floor? His room?
Yes,
Okay.
the ground floor.
Well, yes, let's go and speak to the gentleman in question.
All right. Indeed, when you get there, Mr. Punchin is in his normal state. He is shaking. He is cowering. He's covered in bandages and blankets, and he doesn't want anybody to interview him. Mr. Wayne is, however, sitting on his bed reading, as usual.
I understand you had a rather upsetting night.
It was rather odd evening, yes. I want you all to do a spot hidden, too, as you come into the room.
Success, normal.
I found that.
Oh, 99. No.
Distracted by the cats.
All right. Well, Reginald, you passed.
I got an extreme.
Oh, Felix got an extreme.
Yeah, I was just waiting till traffic was clear.
So, Felix, what you do is, as you guys are walking in, Felix, you're sort of walking last. And as everybody clears the door, you sort of turn to push the door closed. And you notice 3 rocks lying on the ground behind the door. In this case, they just look like rocks from the garden. Anyways, I'll jump. Mr. Wayne says, it was rather strange evening. There was an odd noise, and then Punchin began to scream, and I opened my eyes and looked over, and the room was completely black, no lights, and I had reason to believe somebody was opening the door, so I attacked. I don't know why. I just instinct, I suppose. And
Tell me, Mr. Wayne, did
Wayne's rather heavy, so
the attacker, the assailant, was he armed by any chance?
I don't actually know.
Well, you're not cut, so he didn't try to stab you.
He didn't seem to weigh very much at all. Rather thin man, I would say. I knocked him to the ground, and he struggled, and I outweighed him quite a bit. And he punched me, as you can see from the bruises. And you may not believe it, but he did a kind of a backflip and went out the window, which I had opened earlier in the evening to let in the cool air. He didn't even touch the sill. It was rather remarkable. Very acrobatic. I ran to the window and looked, and I could see in the moonlight him run across the yard, and it looked like he flew, but I believe he leaped completely over the wall.
Did he look like a foreign man to you, not British?
I couldn't tell. I couldn't really tell what color he was, what nationality. I have the impression that he wasn't a white man.
When Punchin cried out, was he speaking words, or was he just...
He seemed very alarmed at the noise that had occurred.
What was that noise like?
It was almost like the sound of a gong going off. You know, like in a Chinese dinner place. Not like that at all. That's more like A sonar. This, much more like that. Okay, that's just bizarre.
What was the sound like? Cue weird sounds. Yeah, so he might have you had the vague sense he was a foreigner. You couldn't really see anything. Probably if he hadn't been wearing white livery of the orderly, he would have been utterly invisible. And he fled with great alacrity. And you didn't see the glint of a knife at any point.
I'm sure he didn't expect me at all.
So they had imperfect information. Well, I do.
Should we look the grounds over for a weapon?
I think that would be entirely reasonable. Yes, I suspect that they. Well, we needn't be graphic.
I'm willing to bet that they would not have left a weapon behind. If he had a weapon, he took it with him.
Well, yeah, and it sounds rather more like the children. What with the acrobatic leapings. But let's have a look-see. It can hardly hurt. And I think that there's an orderly outside the door, I assume, keeping an eye on things because of the attack. Yeah.
All right. So when you search the grounds, you don't find anything. But you do find a piece of rope oddly lying sort of half under a tree. Put this in the drawer. You're not sure, but it might have at one point been tied to a limb of the tree. But it had once it was used, it came loose and just fell to the ground. You think that if this person was as acrobatic as he seemed, he might have used it to jump over the wall. But other than that, you don't find any evidence. It's grass. You don't find any footprints or anything.
Well, how long is the rope?
Maybe 20 feet long.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, he could use that for climbing a wall.
Right. And it's newish. It's probably dry. It's not moldy.
Well, it's not moldy, but it doesn't look new. It's old. It's a little frayed, but it's not that old. Looks like a rope that you'd have in your garage or something.
Probably something not to leave lying around in a sanitarium at any rate.
Is there a tree around there where he could have even bent the branch down and
possibly, yeah,
had it tied off, let it go, and it just pulled him right up and over the wall, making it look like he...
It definitely looks like he had this planned.
Okay.
20 feet of rope not only could climb a wall, it could tie someone up. If he was looking to take punching with him, which is pure speculation, because they didn't use a knife. So if they were looking to assassinate, I would imagine they'd want a knife.
Did Mr. Wayne have any idea why he thought that did he assume Punchin was the intended victim because Punchin was crying out?
Yes.
For all Wayne knows, it could have been himself that was the subject of the attack, but he didn't get that impression. And he certainly startled the assailant thoroughly. Well, I'm afraid our report to Dr. Lawrence is going to be somewhat truncated. We do know that there is an organization that is militant and occasionally violent regarding Assyrian artifacts. And it could even be considered by some at this point that Mr. Punchin's person is, in a sense, an Assyrian artifact.
Well, even beyond that, I mean, one of the first clues we got was the note stuffed in the mouth about punishing those who basically stole property. I mean, the odds are pretty high that that would apply as well.
Yeah, but I'm going to agree with Reginald because now he technically is property. You know what I mean? Like his body is a scroll of
again,
secret information.
Once again, though, to get that skin, you would have to have a knife. Now, they could tie him up, take him with him, but a man who's already hysterical, screaming and hollering, that's probably not going to work.
Right. But if any of us went up to this man right now and said, "Hey, come with me," he's going to start freaking out and yelling. They didn't know this might not have been an attack. It might have been, let me get into his room and speak with him, not knowing the mental instability of him.
Very
And
possible.
by going in and trying to talk to him, automatically the guy would start screaming. Wayne, is it? The other gentleman? Wayne hears the scream and thinks he's being attacked, and automatically, and then if he's swinging at him, the other guy would swing back naturally. So it might have been a big misunderstanding, actually.
I mean, very possible. Very possible. But at the same time, from what we know of the Children of Tranquility, they don't mind a little violence. So, we've seen more acts of violence from them than we had negotiation.
But they did tone themselves down and said they were going to use more Western methods in London from now on.
Well, furthermore, it's only the acrobatics that make me think of them necessarily, because, Guido's master presumably wants the scroll of endless shadow.
True.
He seems to want everything.
I mean, essentially, neither one of them were violently hurt.
I would like to discuss with Dr. Lawrence the possibility with Mr. Punchin's agreement that we doctor the text so that it is illegible. Something, as Cyrus was suggesting earlier, cuneiform's a very interdependent form of script.
But if it's carved into the skin, what are we really going to be able to do?
Well, a little cut here and a little cut there might make it illegible. It would be something that Mr. Punchin would of course have to agree to. It would be akin to a surgical procedure. But given the fact that he's worried about anybody reading the text, he might actually think it's a good idea.
We could pour Indian ink over him, and that would it won't stop it. Understand? But they're going to have to spend a lot more time studying it than just casually glancing at it.
There are various forms of disguise that are less extreme than surgery, I agree. It also is a question of whether it can be altered, because what I translated said that the text of the scroll is upon him until someone who is worthy of Nabu completes the task. So it might be resistant to change or disguise. Even if we could change or disguise it, of course, that's not going to inform the attacker that it's no longer a viable text. I mean, it would just be for his own peace of mind, I guess. I would have liked to find a knife with some fingerprints on it and juicy footprint of the flower bed.
Going off what Cyrus was saying, I offer another potential in this situation, given what Professor Punchin had mentioned before and in his notes. Could this have been a way to threaten him? Come in and say that, like, we know where you are, we can do something to you at any time. We know where to find you. And then again, person going in doesn't entirely know what's going on. That would be in line with the Warlock and Guido and that company, yes?
Well, that's like a best case scenario, because the opposite message was achieved. They proved themselves to be not omniscient and dangerous. I'm at a loss.
I just think if somebody really wanted to hurt him, that he would have been hurt. This was a scouting mission or an initial attempt, or...
Right. If they wanted to kill him, they would have come loaded with a weapon and Mr. Wayne would have felt the implications of that.
Exactly.
And I'm thinking the professor's more worth. How would you say he's worth more to anyone alive, because not just because of this spell upon him, but he's an expert in cuneiform. I mean, if this warlock has, and his group and his guidos have this desire to work with the Caesarean stuff, they're going to need somebody to help translate, and I'm sure there's quite a few other documents and such that they need in order to achieve their goals. And he would be the person to have in their pocket, as it were.
Well, perhaps we should search the room and see if there's any evidence to anything that got dropped, mislaid, footprints, fingerprints. Not that we can really use fingerprints, but
we have to, since I assume that Mr. Wayne took us outside to show us the escape route where we found the rope, we've got to turn the rope over to someone in the hospital and return Mr. Wayne to his room. And they can see if Mr. Punchin is amenable to conversation. I'd like to know if he has any idea about the location of either the Horn of Alu or the Eye of Matsu. And you mentioned, Felix, that you saw another Trinity of Stones.
Felix isn't there.
Oh, he didn't come out with us.
Well, he wandered off somewhere.
where did he go?
I don't know. He wandered off somewhere.
Well, did we see him wander off?
No, you were paying attention to the ground and the tree and the rope.
He was behind us on the way in the room, after all. And he's a slippery one. But I guess if we go back to their room and look for clues, we're going to find the 3 stones. Unless Punchin's hidden them in the meantime.
Well, there's a spell of protection using 3 stones in the Fragmentus.
Protection of what sort?
Yes, do you know a ward against what?
Ward against someone coming into the room.
So it kind of like locks the door or something? Or, it put in an alarm or something, doesn't it?
That's the gong that Mr. Wayne heard.
There we go.
Speaking of coming into the room.
Hello, Felix. Where have you been?
I was down in the cafeteria there. I was talking to Mr. Johnson. You remember Mr. Johnson? Speaks backwards to the mirror, stares at the wall all day.
Mm-hmm.
Curious fellow, really. I find him fascinating. But
Speaks forward to you, though, right?
No, he's backward. He's completely reverse. He's not, but he's fun. He's very interesting. He I like the way he thinks. He was down having lunch, and so I went and asked him if he had seen anything last night, anything odd or anything that might stand out. And he said no, that the lights had went off, and that sparked, if you will, a thought. If the lights went out in the entire hospital, that means it needed to have there was a central point where the power was shut off. So that led me to believe, in my walk back up here, that maybe we should, maybe not as a group of 5, probably won't be necessary, but that one of us should check out where that one power shut off is to see if there's any clue. Maybe there was more than one person. Maybe one person shut off the lights, the other made the run. Perhaps they dropped something while they were down there. Maybe they left a note. Highly unlikely, but we won't know unless we go down and take a look. So if you guys want to hang out here, I'm going to run to the basement and check that out and see if I can see anything.
And here's another mystery for you. Who cast the spell of warding that room?
Punchin did.
Punchin did without Wayne realizing what was going on?
Well, how
Punchin's
detailed?
in near Catatonia.
Yeah, but some things just become second nature once you've done them so many times.
Yeah, it's clearly a priority that he be protected from those coming in. And
Felix, do you mind if I join you? I'm just concerned about any of us going alone anywhere.
Oh yeah, I'm all about having somebody to watch me. That'd be fine.
Very good.
All right. Felix and Vadim, you head down towards the basement, and I would like Felix especially to do an idea.
On 80, just a regular pass.
Okay. You walk down to the basement, and there's a couple of maintenance people. They show you the panel where the power is, and the power is actually there's various breakers for different parts of the hospital, and they said that the only one that was tripped was the one for that particular wing of the hospital, and they point to where it is. But it suddenly occurs to you that if the guy tripped this himself, he would have had to have run like crazy to get down to that ward. Of course, he is described as an acrobatic fellow, but you're not sure how long it would actually take to do it.
Now we did just walk from their room to here.
Yeah, that's kind of why you're thinking it, because you walked here and it took you a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes. If you were running, and actually if you left the basement and went up the way you came, you would have gone into the dark. So the person could have moved very swiftly, hopefully not running into anybody along the way.
On that panel, is it marked as, east wing, west wing?
Yeah.
They're all clearly marked.
And there's also there were things along the way in the hallway, trays with medical equipment and stuff like that. And there was staff. And there were some twists and turns. He would have had to have known the route pretty damn well to get there as quickly as he did.
Okay. Or not been in both places. As I
Exactly.
Vadim,
Yes.
this guy would have had to be incredibly athletic, have some kind of supernatural dark sight, or just be incredibly lucky to kill the power, make it all the way back to that room without knocking something over, running into someone, being seen, or tripping and breaking at his neck. Which is one possibility, is that he's all of those. Or two, he knows this place like the back of his hand.
Or three.
He's not alone.
And I'm also thinking he might also have an accomplice on the inside here. Somebody who's not quite into understanding what the patients are up to, but knows the comings and goings of the place.
Or is terribly interested in it.
True.
Which kind of makes me wonder about the doctor.
Or quite possibly somebody who has been here before. Or maybe still here now.
Or somebody who didn't get hit so much or bruised by somebody, but instead ran into a bunch of stuff while he was walking back through a dark area, just trying to get back to his room.
Possibly. I would go with more the accomplice thing.
Mm-hmm.
And two people.
Let's take another quick look around the creepy old basement here and see if there's anything anything we can see, anything we can find. Not so much.
And it's really not that creepy. It's pretty well lit. Looks like a hospital basement.
And by creepy, Vadim, I mean that in a relative sense.
Yes.
Yeah, it's creepier than the lawn. All right.
I don't know. The crabgrass under the willow tree is kind of.
Now, how watched are these patients? Like, you can't just freely walk around, can you? They
Well,
can come and go from their rooms as pleased, or
you're not in the secure area because these patients are not considered dangerous. So, yeah, I mean, if they want to go for a walk out on the lawn or go sit under a tree and look at the crabgrass, they can do that.
but they couldn't. I mean, once they get back, Felix, did they? Is it a locked door to get down to the basement? Obviously, are they? They have restrictions, obviously, or they could literally just walk to other floors, or
Um, there's enough people around that they would be watched, they would be seen. There's always people on duty that, if they saw Punchin, for instance, leave his room, there would almost immediately be a nurse or somebody come up and say, what can I do for you? Do you need to go somewhere? Do you want to go sit outside? They'd be assisted.
right? Okay.
There are, however, there's a men's wing and a women's wing where they are dangerously insane, and those are locked up tight. Those are, there's no way that those prisoners could get out.
Okay.
The security there is very high.
Is Punchin's roommate
Lewis Wayne.
Lewis Wayne, Mr. Wayne? I'm going to make my way back up to the room.
Okay. I think the rest of you are there. So now you're all together again.
Yeah. How communicative is Punchin?
He doesn't chatter. He'll answer questions, but for the most part, he seems just like a rather tired old man who, obviously, he was an artist, and he comes across maybe as a bit depressed.
Punchin does.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Lewis Wayne does. Punchin is communicative to the point where he rambles constantly about
all right. When I congratulate him on the successful use of his ward, does that cause any response other than the same?
He's like, oh yeah. That way, nobody can take me by surprise. No. They're trying to kill me. I'm sure they're trying to kill me. I'm sure they want me. I'm sure they want it.
Professor Punchin, do you know who they are?
It could be anyone. It wants to be read. It wants its secrets to be known. And
but we would like to find out who these people are so that we can keep it from being read.
You're not able to get much else out of him. And if he notices that you're staring at him too much, he doesn't want you to look at him because
not gonna.
You're trying to read it. Don't. No.
And if I inquire as to what he hoped to gain through the Shadow Gate, he just skitters off in some.
Right.
What about any questions about the horn or the? I'm going to relay this to Reginald because Reginald seems to be the one talking with him the most. So I don't want to interject. Let him focus on one person. But I ask him about the horn or the eye or the seal and see what he says.
He doesn't seem to give any kind of response to it. He just continues to ramble the way that he's rambling.
Very well. We'll keep up the warding, and we're going to try to make sure that no one can get to you. Now they know it's serious after all.
Maybe you should put a ward on the window and on the door. I don't know if you could do two or not, but...
Ward it up.
Anything else before you leave?
Yeah, I wanted to have just a word with Wayne, Mr.
Okay.
Wayne. So, Mr. Wayne.
He smiles up at you pleasantly.
The fellow that came in last night. It was a good job. That's very, very brave of you to jump on top of him like that.
Well, Mr. Punchin's my friend now.
Yeah, he's good. He's a good guy. This when we came in, I saw 3 stones behind your door. Are those your stones?
No, I don't know what those are. I think I saw Willard with them. I think he must have gotten them when he went for a walk with the nurses.
Okay.
They want us to go out into the sunlight every once in a while.
Right. And it's nice out, so that's a good thing to do. And you said you opened the window.
Yes, it was rather warm in here last night.
Mm-hmm. Was the door open? Was the door open and the window open, or was the door closed and the window open?
The door was closed. The person came into the room, and that's when I attacked him. After I heard that very strange noise, like a Chinese gong.
Okay, so just so I get this straight, because a lot's gone on. So the door was closed. You hear a gong. A man appears.
I heard a gong, and then I heard Mr. Punchin scream out.
At any time, did you hear the door open and or close?
I heard the gong sound. I heard Mr. Punchin cry out. I sat up, and I could see that at that moment somebody was coming in the door. I think I could hear the door opening. And after that, I reacted instinctually, and I attacked. I knew something was wrong. All of the lights were out. And I don't know. I attacked what was coming in the door. He was coming in slowly, quietly.
No heavy breathing?
No, I don't remember any breathing. Very quiet he was, except for that gong sound.
With Mr. Punchin screaming also.
Yes.
It might have been hard to hear panting.
I could faintly see the white. But
yes, and I'm sure there's some light in the hallways, even at night. Even if your room lights were off, there normally would be light.
There should be light.
Right.
But there was no light in the hallways.
Yes, well, again.
The moon was out, and he looks over at the window. Maybe there was a reflection of the light, and I could see just a bit.
You mentioned the assailant was rather light.
Yes, like he weighed very little at all.
How did you alert staff once the acrobat had leapt out the window and over the wall?
I didn't. A few minutes later, the lights came on, and the staff, the night staff, came around to check and make sure everything was okay. And they saw that the door was open and Mr. Punchin was yelling, and they tried to calm him down. By then, I'd already stepped back to my place.
I see. Well, I'm personally quite grateful to you for fending off this ne'er-do-well, and we shall do everything that we can to try to apprehend him or them. I'm afraid your roommate has enemies.
Well, then perhaps they should post a guard.
Yes, we've already spoken to the doctor about that, and I think we'll be persuasive.
Well, Mr. Wayne, I didn't mean to grill you there and put you under the put you under a spotlight. That wasn't my intention. We're just trying to look out for the best for Mr.
It's quite all right. Anything I can do to help.
All right. I like your pictures. They're nice.
My cats.
Yeah.
I used to do quite a lot of illustration for magazines.
Yep.
I have a feeling you've got a little too advanced for them, but I'm sure history will show that you were in the right in these fascinating objects. You should never stop working as long as you're able. And we talked to Lawrence about security. I'm sure we could figure out a way to dun Campbell Thompson for it without him kicking up a fuss. Because, we can't be certain, but we have reason to suspect that there'll be further attempts. The text on Mr. Punchin's body is very valuable to some parties, some unscrupulous parties, as it happens. And so, yeah, for the unforeseeable future, he'll need some kind of security greater than that of the normal voluntary inmate patient.
Well, we'll put some of our larger orderlies on guard duty. Do you think that we should transfer him to a more secure? Well, I wouldn't want to put him in with the inmates.
Yes, that's the problem. I mean, obviously.
That was just Roger. He's using a scooter up and down the hall.
If it's therapeutic, all the better.
Well, it's not really there.
Oh, I see. He makes the scooter noise with his mouth?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure it would be untherapeutic to move him into the wing with the dangerous people, but
now, Doctor, I'm sure on this floor, every once in a while, somebody gets out of line a little bit, and you don't send them up with the criminal patients. There must be a little timeout area where people are put to cool off. I mean, would make sense, no?
Well, we might put him in a room by himself. But
Don't
usually
think splitting them up would be beneficial to...
No, I don't think so either. They seem to like each other. Mr. Wayne has a calming effect.
No, I think it's just about,
Can you
measures until something gets resolved.
put some nails in the window so it only opens about a half a foot or something? It only lifts up maybe half a foot so nobody can get in and out the window. It'll stop somebody from coming in, and they'd have to smash the window to get in. Or change their rooms. That way, if somebody comes back, they're going to go to that room and find it empty at least.
Well, I certainly could change their rooms, but Mr. Wayne likes this room. I'll certainly consider it.
Yes, he does need good light, but perhaps the same room on the third floor would have just as good light and be a little bit more secure. Whatever. I mean, it's your institution, obviously. I'm sure you've had to deal with other kinds of incidents. Although
considering the window, perhaps that wouldn't be such a bad idea. I'll see what I can do to beef up security.
And it struck our colleague, Mr. Matthews, that to get from the electrical breaker, I believe it's called, down cellar, into this room in pitch darkness would take a feat of great agility and knowledge. So we fear there may be someone on staff who's compromised, or at least that the assailant had an accomplice in building.
Well, there's a lot of staff. We could do some reviews of the staff and see if anyone looks new or suspicious.
Yeah, and there's the question of how they gained entry as an orderly in the first place. Those are two places that might be buttressed. Not to tell you your business, just because we're concerned that this is not an individual act of violence or lunacy, but an organized interest that we might be facing.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for your assistance. And if I know anything more, I will give you a call for sure.
Thank you. I have anything. We've gotten the photographs back, and I'll be looking at them. If anything interesting turns up or something that might help, I'll be in touch.
All right.
And if Mr. Punchin's condition should change at all, we'd be interested to know as well.
Absolutely. Certainly.
Now, once we're out of earshot from the doctor, I bring up to the group, maybe we should do a little research into this Wayne character, just to make sure we can find out, anything. And, Wayne, artist, worked on magazines. Okay, he's legit. Or is he a plant?
Most likely, if you guys have read certain magazines and things like that, you've seen his art.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure he is who he was.
He'll like the cat dressed like Santa Claus, and there's all sorts of things. He did a lot of illustrations.
Okay.
So yeah, you're pretty sure you know who he is.
How about a Velvet Elvis?
I don't think Elvis is alive yet. That would be remarkable.
That would be very spooky.
Madame Cleo maybe painted it back. All right, so you guys leave there. What would you like to do next? Where would you like to go?
Did we have Felix send someone over to Mr. Schweinsager's yet? Could we just throw that out? Something that was useless.
You phone Schweinsteiger and you don't get an answer. You go by his place and he seems to have left.
Sign of the one that says, "I moved to Switzerland, enough of this."
Yeah, something like that.
Left is just the store, or left as in locked up?
It looks like he's
gone
out of business, yeah.
It happens. There goes that investment.
He'll go suck some sausages somewhere else.
Reginald firing up the Wayback Machine got me all the way back to page 2.
So what would you like to do next? You are working on the...
we do have the photographs to study. Until somebody has an idea, maybe I'll just immerse myself in this cuneiform, and perhaps if I learn more of the ritual from it, I'll have some other idea.
Now, you have the photographs, but you don't have the journals. You gave those to Longdon.
That's right. I could phone him from the club and see if he's gotten anywhere with them.
Well, he says not very much. It's not under. I don't understand a lot of this because I don't have the text that it's referring to. Were you able to procure? I think you said photographs that you were trying to get.
We did take some photographs, and I think I'm developing an idea of the sequence of the text. I'll transcribe it in batches as I go and see if that is of help to you.
Well, one of my colleagues here, you may have met him before, Walter Meems.
Yes, a learned man.
He's also an expert on cuneiform, and he caught me looking over the journals, and as we say, looked over my shoulder, and immediately told me that there was something very wrong here, that that Mr. Punchin had completely mistranslated certain passages. He had used, as he said it, that cuneiform is polyvalent, which we're all aware of, and that that the meanings of the words had been mistranslated, and that this kind of a text, there's a way to decipher what order it should be put into if you have all of the text. But he seemed to indicate to me, Mr. Meme seems to me rather obsessed lately with the new artifacts from Nineveh. And
You don't say.
yes, I mean, he's been cataloging a large number of them. And when he saw this, he became very, very interested. He seemed to indicate that it was dangerous.
Well, it appears to have done Mr. Punchin no end of trouble. So perhaps we should also proceed with care.
Well, if you don't mind, I would like very much to see the scrolls as you photographed them on his body.
Yes, very well. Shall we make an appointment? Are you available now? Perhaps
I'm available for you. I'm available anytime.
That's very kind of you. Do you want to see if we can bring Mr. Weems in at the same time?
I'll tell him, yes, that you're coming, that you have photographs.
Very well. I'll see you shortly. Perhaps I'll bring some of my colleagues.
All right.
So, fellows, I explained that, obviously that traffic London can be loud. I explained the broad strokes of the conversation. The question that I must put to you is, do you think that we're increasing the overall risk by involving these people, or that we need to solve these puzzles to avoid the coming disaster? I've never been much for reading people, mostly text.
How about people with texts on them?
I've read some of that.
I think we need to do what we need to do regardless. Like, if danger, no danger, we need to investigate this and put an end to it once and for all.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then if no one objects, you're all welcome.
May I make a suggestion?
Please.
That we provide a couple pictures right now and say the others there's been troubles with the negatives, and they are being worked on to see if we can get them to come out. That way we can slowly monitor the information going out, and if something does happen, we don't give it all away right away.
I don't object.
Maybe get a better feel on what's going on.
I mean, heaven knows, until yesterday, I thought Longton was as straight and narrow as they can be, and he might well be. But we've had several very long and difficult months, and I am less trusting than I used to be.
I think we all are.
Wisely arranged to have 2 copies of all the photographs, so we can put a complete batch in the safe here, take half of what we've already of the half of one set over now, and see if we can get a better read on Longton, and also this Weems fellow.
I'm interested in this Weems fellow.
We could even put out some disinformation, such as they're moving Punchin to Lancaster Hospital, or a specialist in the Americas wants to see him. He might go overseas just to throw off any would-be
I just wish we knew where our various adversaries got their information, because I don't think that telling memes and Longton is going to stop the Guido party or the Children of Tranquility. I think, I feel like there's just so many different streams. I mean, how did the Frenchman who approached Punchin know that he was working on the scrolls? It's just, there's no sensible sequence of events that provides that information. Again, though, perhaps the missing piece in all of this is memes, since he's been cataloging things coming in from Nineveh. He might know more than Leicester did, or even Thompson himself. The other question I'd like to begin to ponder as a group is how we can get a hold of Thompson. Oh, I guess we know what club he goes to, but I don't know if we don't want to have a scene at a club. But I do think we need to have another conversation with him, and I'm afraid I did not make a very good impression the last time we spoke.
Well, what we really need to do, and this is where Thompson is the key to this, is find out who in the British Museum system funded all of this, this whole trip to Nineveh, because this is where the Warlock and the Guidos and that organization is based. I mean, it's quite likely that they are the ones that had influence to do this.
Yeah, but if you have that much money and you're funding something for a magical dig or whatever you want to call it, some sort of evil gate to destroy the world, you're not going to put your name to it. You're going to be smart enough to disguise. I'm not saying it's you're wrong. You're probably 100% right, but I would think that they're smart enough not to be tied directly to it.
Well, they have disguised who they are pretty well already. So,
and again, this is where the broad question comes: how do we get Thompson to ever tell us the truth? Because he's done nothing but lie to us historically. I think Felix has an idea.
We have a guy for that. We have Cyrus.
Really? He's killed all the people that he's talked to.
Those people all exploded on their own.
Yeah.
But I don't think Thompson will explode. But I'm sure he will bleed, and maybe in that blood will be our answers.
At the very least, you've got a fine cleanup crew, should that come to pass.
Correct.
That I would suggest go very cautiously, because Thompson is quite in the eye of others, and we don't want to
yeah, he's
upset the boat.
He's a socialite now, and he hangs out with a lot of people that have a lot more money than we do.
But he also has an image to uphold. And if anybody can destroy someone's image, it's the people I run around with.
Well, there is one thing in academia that will destroy you, and that he's going into obscurity. Something to ponder.
Do you all want to accompany me to the museum to
Sure, I'll go.
I'll be there.
follow up with these photographs, these partial set of photographs?
Yeah.
We'll take 8 of the dozen that we have. We didn't get the soles of his feet, is that correct?
Right? You didn't get under the hair.
And of course we couldn't get under his hair, yeah. So we have broad shots of most of his body that are clear enough to read the markings on.
I'm also not sure that you would have photographed his privates.
Right. And yet presumably they are marked. Yeah. I mean, it was part of changing his dressings, wasn't it? So,
right.
And they're everywhere. But given that he began to object pretty quickly, I think that's why we basically have front, back, and sides. Maybe we don't even have to keep anything back for that matter. Our information is so limited. But I the idea of trying to feel out Longton, and for that matter memes, it makes a degree of sense to me. See how greedy they seem,
See, I would think it would be memes more than Longden because he said it was dangerous. How would you know? You're reading some cuneiform. It's an old scroll. It's an old story. It's an old yada yada yada. What? Why would he determine that this specific text is dangerous? That's what put a flag in my head.
Well, even in
No,
what I translated, there was specific warning.
Okay.
there is warning all
Don't
the
do this
time
wrong
in,
way.
but there is warning all the time in folklore. So what does this have to be different with folklore?
Right, like on Tutankhamun's tomb, it was a curse. Would you say,
Precisely.
"Oh, that's dangerous"? No, that's some old whatever from 2,000 years ago. Why would you specifically say, "Oh, this could be dangerous," unless you had some insider knowledge?
Well, and again, well, two things I would say to that. One is that if you'd asked me 6 months ago whether the curse on Tutankhamun's tomb was something to be taken seriously, I'd have laughed. And now I feel rather differently. We have seen what
Right,
happens to
because
people
you
who
know.
warnings. Yes. So perhaps Memes knows. That doesn't mean that he's working against us. It might just mean that he's had experiences that change his understanding of these things. Yeah. Let's off. Are you going to drive again, Felix? Have you been driving again, Felix, while we had this conversation?
Yes. I have been.
It's a very comfortable town car, I must say.
It's a smooth ride. You know, it's a very smooth ride, and the roads are much improved from what they once were. So you probably never even realized we were in the car.
All right. So you arrive back at the British Museum. You go to Longdon's office, and as you knock on the door and step inside, you can see that that Longdon has the book. He's got the books on his desk, and it's kind of like a table where he can examine things and make notes of his own and write. There's a man there, Walter Means. You recognize him because when you were trying to find information about the Shadow Man, and you were down here before, you met Miss Leicester and you met Mr. Memes. At that time, Mr. Memes seemed very, very much a very serious individual. He wasn't interested in rumors or nonsense. He was simply working on this project, and he was very serious archaeologist or whatever you'd say. In this case, when you walk in, he seems very eager to have a look at what Mr. Longdon has told him that you're bringing. And he Longdon introduces you, gentlemen. This is Mr. Walter Memes. He is actually quite a bit better at the cuneiform than I am. And Memes says, yes, do you have the photographs? I would very much like to see them.
Yes, I actually believe we have met before, Mr. Memes, but it's a pleasure.
Well, have we?
We've been in and out of here quite a lot in the last few months. Usually looking for things that were absent rather than presenting something.
Well, I'm a very busy man, so I don't have a lot of time to converse with people. Do you have the photographs?
Yes, indeed. And I warn you, they're a little shocking. These are fresh injuries.
So do you show him the photographs?
And I present a little portfolio. I'm only going to leave 2 out.
Okay. Well, he immediately begins to go through them. Okay, rather quickly, looking for something in particular, and he says, the beginning, the thing that I would anticipate, does not seem to be here, but This, and he puts his hand on it. He said, this, amazingly, this is the scroll of endless shadow. And from what I understand of the artifacts, this was on a scroll. And now it is on Mr. Punchin's body.
I believe there were actually 3 scrolls.
Were there? It would seem that somehow the curse upon these scrolls is in fact effective. Now I know how strange, how very strange that seems, but I have been working with the things that we've been received, that we've acquired from Nineveh. You know, there was a second expedition in 2019.
The 1919 dig, yes.
The more I look at these artifacts, the more I begin to realize that there may be something here. There may be something far more. You know, everybody's talking about a curse. Very strange things going on. And he starts to point at some of it, and he says, "You see here, he says, now if you look in his book, he translates it this way, but what he's using, he's made a terrible mistake. He's using Assyrian as his base when everything in the collection that I've looked at so far that has markings on it, it's much more archaic, much older than standard Syrian. So he's completely mistranslated this. He's made assumptions that are completely wrong. This text is very old indeed, possibly from the earliest Assyrian writings. There are warnings here, dire warnings, that if this ritual is not performed correctly, that the god will take terrible vengeance on anyone.
Well, and the photographs show, in fact, that they have, it would seem. Do you know what purpose would be served by opening the shadow gate?
I don't know. In this case, I would need to translate them. I would need to carefully translate them, and I would need all of them. I can see here that you were unable to get whatever cuneiform must be written underneath his hairline.
Yes. He's extremely agitated by the idea that anyone should translate this text or read it. He feels that the text itself wants to be read.
Well, he has read it himself, or at least attempted to.
Misread it, yes.
Misread it.
Perhaps the fact that he has misread it is why he's so afraid. But I don't think that allowing the man any human dignity, we can retrieve the text from other places beneath his hair, his buttocks, the soles of his feet. He was very agitated at the attempt we made to photograph him at all.
I
He's
don't
a tortured
know.
creature, I can tell you.
I imagine he has been punished, as it says here.
I understand the curse to assert that until someone who is worthy of Nabu can correctly perform the ritual, Mr. Punchin is doomed to be the scrolls himself. And I believe that the scrolls that he acquired were, in fact, vellum of human flesh, another preceding recipient of this curse. I just don't understand what good it could possibly do, even if it were performed correctly.
Well, is this all you have? We can do what we can to translate some of this.
We have, I believe there's a potential for a couple of more images. That the negatives were damaged. But we'll not have a complete text without photographing him further, which I'm loath to do, loath even to consider.
But in the name of science, in the name of discovery, his hair will grow back.
You know, he's been mutilated and is in a madhouse. And I'm not sure that a complete text is worth further tormenting the poor man.
It may be, if this is true, if any of this is true, that we could be standing on a warning that would save us all. We just don't know. But if in fact this has written itself on his body by, dare I say, magic, if magic is true, then we could be in horrible danger.
Mr. Meems, I can assure you that magic is something that is real in our world.
It seems so preposterous, though.
Can I ask you, since you've been cataloging the latter expedition, if you're aware of the absence of the Eye of Lamatsu or the Horn of Alu?
And he looks over at Longden, and Longden says, there are things that never arrived. And he says, the Horn of Alu, here, it says, it's part of the ritual. All of these things were present inside the Temple of Nabu, kept there.
You mentioned other artifacts that have you concerned over all this. What other artifacts?
Well, there was a whole library of cuneiform texts, all that seem to mention things. I've been reading them, and they corroborate one another, and they seem to indicate that there was some terrible thing that was on the verge of breaking into our world. I know that you say it seems abhorrent to you, but I think it's vital that we find out what all of the text says.
Can you work on what we have now, and we'll see what we could do about getting the rest of it?
Yes. Yes, it'll take me a while. This is not easy. This is an archaic language. It's very difficult to translate.
And if you had to take a shot in the dark about where those missing artifacts went, where would you start to look for the horn, the eye, the seal?
I've no idea. If they were missing on the way here, they could be anywhere. If they were taken by somebody who knew vaguely what they were, they could be in some private collection. Somebody will never find them.
Is there a manifest of any kind of any of the artifacts that are here?
There's thousands of artifacts.
It might behoove us to see what we can find and see what is actually here. That way, in the future, we might be able to narrow things down a little bit.
It's what we're working on presently, but it may take years for us to finish cataloging everything that's come.
I do have another question, if you don't mind, sir. Did Professor Punchin have a office here at the museum or in a collaborating building?
Oh, yes, he had an office here, but mostly he worked from home.
Would it be possible if we could have a look here? Because just in case he might have left something?
They look at each other, and he says, I don't see why not. I'll get the security guy to let us in.
Very good, thank you.
How's your relationship with Campbell Thompson?
Oh, Mr. Campbell Thompson, a brilliant man. I haven't spoken to him directly in months now. He's very busy with socializing and building up his reputation as a rather brilliant archaeologist.
Yeah, it's a bit of a swashbuckler as well. Um, when did you first learn of the 1919 expedition?
He looks once again. He looks over at Longden, and looks back at you, and he's well, I would say it was a number of months ago that we had received the shipments quite a while back. I would say a number of years ago, and they had been placed into storage, and it was at the prompting of the board of directors and Campbell Thompson himself that we began cataloging them. They had some plans for a new display, which I believe they're working on now. Once we began working on it, we became very excited about what these were. And we were also told to keep our mouths shut because we didn't want the public knowing before the announcement.
Now, if you were at the site of a temple and a library that you were not allowed to retrieve artifacts from in the near world, and you had the job of shipping things back to the British Museum secretly, and you didn't want to lose some of the items, how would you go about doing such a thing? Or what do you know about what Campbell Thompson did? Because we really did track these items that appear not to have arrived, but must be here somewhere.
Well, I don't know for sure. I've never done anything like that. However, you know that the British Museum has done that many times, Egypt and other places. You just go in, you dig them up, you put them in boxes, and you ship them home. And unless the government finds out what you've done, nobody says one thing or the other. They're packed in straw, they're wrapped to be kept safe, and probably marked as I don't know, manufacturing goods.
Yes, fragile household goods do not drop. And inside each crate, would there be some manifest?
Not necessarily, no.
It seems like a system designed for maximum lossage.
Well, it is 1920s. Hopefully nobody knows that anything is valuable.
It is a modern world at that, yes. So you don't have any particular suasion with Mr. Campbell Thompson. You can't charm him out of his secrets.
No, if I had some reason to speak with him, he certainly wouldn't turn me away.
My concern is these particular items that are missing might be things that he recognizes as inherently valuable, and that's why they didn't make it.
They're all valuable.
Some things are more inherently valuable than others.
Yes, but Mr. Campbell is he's not interested in acquiring these things for himself. He's interested in acquiring them for posterity. That's why he brings them all here to the museum. I mean, if he wanted something, he would have taken it, but...
He does also like power.
Well, the man spends all of his life digging in tunnels and getting filthy and dirty in the hot blazing sun. When he gets a chance to eat good food and dance and meet good people, he takes it. And if anybody deserves it, he does.
Can't say that I blame him.
Because no doubt in a few years he'll be back in the dirt digging once again. If he didn't love it, he wouldn't do it.
In what you've looked at so far, both in these photographs and in the work you've been cataloging, have you noticed a reference to a gate and a key?
Not particularly. Why? Have you read something?
It's the phrase has come up. I don't know if it's really meaningful or not.
I don't know. Key is an interesting word. How you would translate key? Off game. I'm not sure if they used keys as we understand keys.
Well, we had horn, eye, and seal. So,
Reginald, did you bring your translation of part of it? The part.
Yes, I should think. Yeah, I mean, I have more than one journal. I left one here with Longton, but I was working on it actively since then. So,
well, if you show it to him, then he would say that the Horn of Alu must be some sort of an artifact, whether it's a real animal musical instrument or some other object. But according to what you've translated, which you've done a very good job translating, and he points out all the spots that you get wrong, but they don't make much difference in the text. And he says, yes, if he didn't have that, then that he wouldn't be able to perform the ritual correctly. So will you leave these here with me and allow me to work on them? Would you? You seem to have some skill. Perhaps you could assist me, or we could assist each other.
Yes. I'm sure that between the two of us, we can correct enough errors that the work will go faster. And it'd be interesting to see your mind at work on these things. As you say, it's particularly old material. And I think that some of these markings are not attributed as yet, and we'll have to work them out from context.
Okay. Next step, what would you guys want to do? If you've agreed to that.
Where is Thompson's office?
Thompson's office is at the other end of the area. You've been
we know where it is, right?
Yes.
So while everybody's keeping these guys busy, I tap Felix and say, let's hit the restroom. And I want to head to Thompson's office. Unless anybody else wants to come, but I figured if they,
The fewer the merrier on this one.
Yeah, I've got these two interested parties locked down in a nerd fest.
I'll go with you, Cyrus.
I'm interested in Professor Punchin's office.
So why don't 2 people go to Punchin and 2 people go to Thompson's and take care of business?
Okay. Well, Longton has the security guy let you into Punchin's office. You guys can do a spot hidden. The other 2, when you get to Thompson's office, he has a secretary right outside of his door who is there, and she informs you that he's not there right now.
Do you know when he will be back?
He doesn't exactly keep a regular schedule.
And how old is this woman?
She looks like she's maybe in her 50s.
All right.
Hold on.
Very proper.
Does she have a wedding ring?
Do a luck roll.
I passed luck.
Okay. Yeah, she has luck. She has a wedding ring. You didn't know the way that luck was going to go.
Hard success on Punchin's office.
Okay. you begin looking through Punch and stuff, and you can see there's a lot of indication that, he was a brilliant writer. His office is oddly a lot neater than his home was. Probably he has a cleaning staff that cleans his office. You find nothing to indicate anything special here.
Well, specifically looking for perhaps some hidden or not so hidden notes that maybe he was already starting to do some translations on those scrolls that he left
You don't see
behind.
anything here.
Okay.
And back at the secretary, was there anything? You're kind of, there's no way you could break in without them knowing. All right, so you meet back in the central part of the museum, and what would you guys like to do?
I was hoping to find some notes so that we could avoid any further trouble with Professor Punchin, but not coming up with anything.
Do we know where Thompson lives?
Finding his residence is probably not difficult. I think actually you do know where he lives.
Well, we also know he's been hanging out at a social club, which is probably or a restaurant.
It's a social club, like the Wentworth Club.
Right.
Now we're
Probably
all together.
to approach.
Yeah, you're all back together.
Okay. At some point, not saying today, tomorrow, but at some point, we need to get into Thompson's office and his home. I forgot who brought it up. It might have been Reginald. But when sending stuff back, how would you go about it? I think he has that. He might have mailed it to himself. He might have mailed it to a club. But I think they're in his possession at this point. It's just a whim, but...
I mean, he could have brought some of these items back in his personal luggage.
Right.
But then they would have no reason to know they were missing. So there's some element there we don't understand. And the question remains whether we can really expect that Reginald Campbell Thompson wants to bring about the end of times. As far as we know, he's quite worldly. So it's not clear why that would be the case. We just know that he's a consistent liar, and so we naturally are suspicious of him.
I just had the odd idea. We need to eventually talk with Professor Punchin, yes?
I would think so.
I hope that we'd, yeah.
Well, how hard would it be to, shall we say, make arrangements for him to come to us at the Wentworth Club? He's, of course, going in social circles, and we are part of social circle, yes?
But wait, you talking about inviting Thompson to the clubhouse?
Well, not inviting him as a member, but inviting him over, shall we say, for... Let him come and do his, as they say, in song and dance.
I understand
Promoting himself.
where you're going with that, but now that we know magic exists, I do not want him anywhere near that building. I don't know what people can do. Like this, for lack of a better term, lunatic locked in the asylum is still able to cast spells using 3 rocks. Me personally, I don't want him within 1,000 feet of our home base. Call me paranoid, but
But it would be a way to, well, he would not necessarily have to be at club, but it function that club sponsors.
like
It
out
would not
in
have
a
to be on the
nice,
grounds itself. It would be like
Okay.
a garden party or something like that.
yeah, out in a restaurant, out in a
Yes.
cabaret. That I'm fine with. I just don't want him in our inner sanctum.
And that would give us opportunity to take him to the side, as it were, and talk with him and guarantee that we have that meeting.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say while he's at this function, one or two of us won't be, and we'll be at his house and office. Kill two birds with one stone. Juice some crows.
Mm-hmm. Juice
That's-
some crows.
That is our in-club group name, the Crow Juicers. It is decided. Although, of course, as you pointed out, Cyrus, as a madman in Bedlam can make an alarm with 3 stones, breaking into Campbell Thompson's office or home, he's probably got more than 3 stones.
Yeah, he could have 6 or 12, but we'll make sure he's still 45 minutes away from getting back there. But unless he could teleport.
Well, it's without even doing an idea roll. It's very likely he has a half a dozen servants too.
Yeah. It's just a half a dozen more murders I don't want to have to do.
How far you've all sunk.
Well, he's very sloppy with his own diary in his own office, so that seems to be the place. Leaving notebooks around here and there.
Well, I would think the office would be easier to investigate while we do these function. And if I'm not mistaken, we are due for a offsite function anyway. So perhaps we can make it all work together. And having a luminary such as Reginald Campbell Thompson giving a talk about these exploits.
Yeah, at the very least, the office needs to be investigated.
Mm.
And I will not invite him personally to the event.
No. We talked through our fellows who are up at the board, and I'm sure they'd be more than happy to accommodate, do the work for us, as they say.
I'm sorry, I was answering chats. What was this? You were deciding that you were going to have some sort of an event and invite Campbell Thompson? Looking
at getting it set up. It may take time. It may be a few weeks from now, but it gives us a potential to actually sit down and talk with him rather than have him go about and have us come to him. He comes to us.
All right. Well, I'll assume then that you're leaving. And let's bring you back all to the Wentworth Club, since that's your headquarters. What is your next step?
Do we have Campbell Thompson's home address?
Yes. Okay. Now, I'm trying to, hopefully I'm not confusing it with another game, but did one of you go there already?
Mm-hmm.
Fuller did.
Yes.
Yeah, he was
not welcomed.
Yeah, servants weren't going to let him in.
Yeah. Right. We do know where it is. We also, again, know that he is frequenting this social club where he's hobnobbing with all sorts of peerage. So we might be able to arrange to know when he's not at home.
That may already be taken care of.
Or at the office.
I've had a tail on him for a little while now. Put it on earlier this afternoon. So
does he go anyplace surprising?
I haven't called and checked in just yet.
Fair enough.
But if we can get him in some kind of pattern, if we can start tracing out a pattern, then that gives us a little bit of an advantage as to where to be to make sure that our paths cross.
I'm sorry.
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, or a possible place where he's meeting with other occultists, or a stash house, or laundry list of places.
Otherwise, how did you all feel about Longdon and memes today? I feel as though I'm prepared to cough up the last 2 photographs.
Yeah, he was kind of grabby about the first ones, but after you talked to him for a minute, he seemed to calm down.
Yeah, and I found his seeming earnest regarding preventing a calamity to be somewhat compelling.
Well, it honestly, doesn't matter if we give him all the photographs because we don't have the complete set. So, I mean, he's not going to get any farther than we are.
Well, yeah, he presumably can't wreak ultimate evil. The question is, can he prevent it if that is in fact what these scrolls of endless shadow would allow one to do, which appears to be what Punchin thought.
I'm on board with giving him whatever he needs because you're good at reading it, but he's great at reading it. And that one little mistranslation could make or break the whole thing. So,
Right. I also expect I'll be learning in the process.
At least you want to be sporting your own tattoo, full body tattoo.
It looked extremely painful, frankly. All right, so I'm going to continue to work with them, and I'm going to cough up the rest of what we have, since we appear to have no objections to that.
Fine.
Very good.
Okay.
All right.
Shall I put a notice out for the Children of Tranquility regarding the missing artifacts?
exactly what I was just going to say. I was going to get a consensus from the group. What do you think if we should contact them? But you took the words out of my mouth.
I don't know. Wouldn't that tip our hand and they would know that we're interested in those artifacts?
They already know we're interested, and they said if we needed them to reach out. I mean,
Maybe I'll post a notice to the paper in the area prescribed that says not anything about the Horn of Alu or the Eye of Lamatsu, but about the Scroll of Endless Shadow. And that might indicate to us also whether or not they were involved in the attack on Punchin, since he is now the Scroll of Endless Shadow.
I mean, do you even have to get that detailed? Didn't we just need to put something about children on Tranquil or something like that, and they'll contact us?
Yes, keep it vague.
They said something last time. I can't recall the exact, but it
Yeah,
was something fairly vague like that.
And they insisted on the vagueness, if I recall correctly.
Right. So I will tap them for a meeting, and we'll see what happens if they even respond.
You know, this isn't important per se. I'm just finding it kind of curious since, Punchin's got the scroll etched on his body. Now, we take pictures of that. But how do you really know what order they go in? Because you're taking a two-dimensional thing and putting it on a three-dimensional plane. And then you've got, we're worried about his hair, but what about if he's got printing in between his fingers and toes? You would never know how that actually all fit together. So we could be mistranslating it as much as he did.
There was some indication that there was a spiral in one part of his body that seemed to be introductory. Although I agree with you after that, and because we have found it to be somewhat shuffled, because it was applied to him in some mysterious mechanism. That's, I think, one of the reasons that Memes wants the entire text, is that once you have every page, as it were, then you can figure out what order the pages go in. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to damage Mr. Punchin any further, but I don't know how we're going to get the full text unless we can extrapolate it from 82% or something.
You'd have to like jack him up on some laudanum or something while he's unconscious. Then he'd never know that we did it.
That
all right.
That might be the only way to actually get it done without him actually knowing it is done. All right.
And it would save him the emotional terror.
Yeah, I think, it would surprise me if there were no point that he didn't need general anesthesia given the extent of his injuries and his infirmity and whatnot. But we'd have to get Lawrence to write off on that or kidnap him.
Yeah, and then also waking up with no hair, he's gonna know something happened.
There is that. Yeah. How much hair does he have?
Not much. It's short.
Well, at this time in history, there's lots of troubles with lice. They might be shaving his head in the hospital to begin with.
Definitely in the criminally insane section to avoid for people fighting and grabbing it and lice. But in the self-admitted or non-criminal, it could go either way.
I don't know. I'm just thinking that even in today's modern times, if you go to prison, they generally shave you, and you're supposed to keep your hair short. I mean, you're having a lot of problems with lice at this period in time. I would imagine in an institution like that, with the level of technology, medical technology we have, they just shave their heads. I could be wrong, but
Yes, it obviously wasn't part of the admissions procedure, so we'd have to come up with something. And again, probably get Lawrence to write off on it. And, you know, he's probably got marks in places that, you know, he would consider indelicate. So there's that. And unconsciousness, I think, would be key. And yeah, maybe there's a way to excuse the shaving. If
I
we
wonder-
decide to do the text.
I wonder if there's engravings on his internal organs.
You know, I thought about that too, but I'm sure even in his ear, the back of his ear, the inner ear. I mean, if you want the full text, it'll be rough.
It's going to be a bitch to do. And there's really not any way we could do it nicely.
But as we could see, mistranslating of even one word could lead to one of us becoming that new scroll. So
You guys don't think that we're getting bogged down in the trees when all we really need is the forest?
He's got the point.
Are we going to actually do this spell? Are we trying to do the Endless Shadow spell? I don't
would
know
not
if that was
do
on our
it.
schedule, because if we're not, we don't need the words at all.
That's the question. Well, you know, and sadly, we can't ask Punchin why he thought this was salvational, and whether or not that's because he misread something. He thought it was what he had to do desperately, but we don't know why he thought that. We don't know what he was trying to do. And again, didn't it say something about the shadow gate? So that's a gate, and we've got the key question. You know, I don't know if he was trying to do something that was a very bad idea, but we certainly don't want to try to do the same thing as badly as he did.
Or think that we've won a prize by translating the entire thing, saying, hey, this is what it says, blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, we've got a big shadow gate popping open with some bullshit coming out of it. It's like, all right, we won the prize. It's great.
You do speak very colorfully, Felix.
Well, I'm a man of many nations, actually. I have a quite colorful array of people that I keep in my circles.
Personally, I think our time would be best spent tracking down who this warlock is and the Guidos, and putting an end to their end of this matter. That is a little bit more doable than, shall we say, messing around with magic even more than we have. And it's kind of funny because I'd rather be working with the magic, but I'm also practical in this situation.
All right. So you guys are all still at the Wentworth Club?
This is where we blather.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll say that you blather on for a while, and we'll find out what you're going to do next week. So we'll call it there. Or did you want to say something, Cyrus? Oh, okay. Our players included Jason Melnichuk, Ford Fitch, Jerry Bryant, John Byram, and David Gasper. with yours truly as the keeper of the secrets. We're currently producing up to 5 shows a week with music and sound effects added in post-production in order to create a richer listener experience. We provide audio-only versions of our shows free for you to download from Podbean or iTunes. The costs involved with the show are provided almost entirely by our patrons. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. If you'd like to support our show, visit our Patreon account. Just $1 or $2 a month helps us a lot. You can find a link in the description below. Like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and punch that bell icon for updates on our latest shows, and leave us some comments. We enjoy reading them and answering any questions you might have. This is Tom Rayleigh, together with all the members of our gaming club, inviting you to journey with us once again into the darkness for another adventure into the universe of H.P. Lovecraft and the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. Until next time, good luck and good gaming.